Welcome to Notable Approvals. I am attorney Amanda Shaffer. I have another great case to talk to you about today. Before I get to the case, reminder to like us and follow us on Facebook and YouTube, Twitter, so that you don't miss any more of our lives. Another reminder, tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, we will be having episode 5 of Are You Smarter Than a Naturalized Citizen? That will be live. Attorney Elaine Martin will be facing off against attorney Wayne Dapser. I invite you all to join us. Again, if you go to our business page, or the event page, if you like us, or follow us, it'll come up automatically. Otherwise, you can join by going to the event page and through our Facebook page. If I didn't confuse you enough and you're still with me, let's get to the case for today. Today's case is about a client who is a native and citizen of Nigeria. She first came to the U.S. in around September 2016 with a B2 visitor visa. She met her husband in 2017 at a 4th of July barbecue, and they got married, and he filed for her green card. Now, we did not represent her in the filing of the petition and the application. She came to us when they got their interview notice. And we get this it's pretty common that people file it by themselves and then want an attorney to help them prepare for the interview and represent them at the interview. I mean, I obviously don't recommend it, but I think this case, just because it's so complicated in general, but I think this case is a good example of why, because I think this is a case that could have been granted a lot quicker if an attorney was used from the beginning, but an attorney wasn't. So basically what ended up happening was they came to us to prepare for the interview, and this is, again, a common thing we do. We go through all the evidence that they submitted. I don't believe they had copies of their applications, so I couldn't go through that with them to make sure things were correct. But we were able to say, okay, what evidence did you submit? These are the original documents you need to bring. What additional evidence do you have? So they had some pretty decent evidence. Again, I didn't see it all, but in general, this stuff is usually pretty good. But remember, every piece of evidence, like, well, one person's bank account is not equivalent to another's. And I mean, if two couples have a joint bank account, one couple uses it a lot and one couple doesn't really use it at all, they're not going to be looked at in the same way by USCIS. They want to see that you're using your joint account. So they had things like they had a joint bank account, they had joint taxes, joint lease, life insurance, letters from family and friends, greeting cards congratulating them on their wedding, as well as some photos from their wedding and with other family and friends. So at the first interview I attended with them, this was in October of 2019. And I've been to so many of these marriage interviews. I usually have a pretty good feeling afterwards how it went. I felt it went pretty well. I remember talking to them after saying, look, I try to be honest. I've been to worse. I've been to better. But, you guys had decent marriage evidence, paper evidence. And, the officer you guys didn't get too many questions wrong. So there was a couple of things that were off, but overall, I thought it went pretty well. But I said, I don't know what was written on the applications. I don't really know the evidence that was submitted at first. So you can give different answers. What can happen is if you give different answers at the interview than you did on your application, like if your spouse says that you worked at McDonald's and you didn't work at all, then that's where other issues that I might not be aware of can come up just because I didn't file the applications. When we're practicing with the clients who we filed applications for, or at least have copies, I can go through and make sure everything's correct. And if I ask where your spouse works and you tell me your spouse doesn't, but I have your spouse does work, we can bring it up then and figure out why we're off then. But again, if you file without a lawyer and you don't have copies of your application, that makes it a little more difficult. So although the interview went well, I told them We didn't get an answer that day. They said they had to hold it for review. I said, I'm not going to be surprised if they call you in for a Stokes interview. That's the second interview where they separate you and your spouse. They ask you the same questions. They bring you together at the end, and they say, I asked this question, you said A, you said B, why did you give me a different answer? And those are pretty stressful interviews. So you want to try to avoid the Stokes if possible. Plus, there's a really long wait right now. This client was waiting since October 2019. I have a few others in 2019 that are still waiting for what we believe is going to be their Stokes interview. Had these clients started with us, would it have made a difference? I'd like to think so. It's possible the applications would have been filled out better, that the evidence that they submitted, maybe they would have even had more evidence, but I don't know. I can only tell you that when we file it, we do make sure everything is correct, and we tend to get, our cases only get delayed for reasons outside of our control and not having anything to do with the quality of our work. So anyways, we waited, finally got the Stokes interview notice for this month. And my clients asked for us to prepare them and attend with them again. Now, major difference between this time they went and last time they went is now they have a child together. And if you're asking me what's the number one type of evidence you can show USCIS that your marriage is real, I'd say have a baby together. It's not 100% proof, but it's pretty good proof. So they actually they had to bring the baby with them because they had nowhere else to put the baby. So I was on the phone telephonically because of COVID, and I was prepared to, for at least a minimum of an hour. These things can go on for a while. And I knew my client was there. I get a call, but it's not from the officer, it's from my client. She goes, oh, we're done. I'm like, what do you mean you're done? They didn't call me. This was like 45 minutes after the interview time, but usually you wait after your interview time, probably at least an hour. So I wasn't surprised that I was still waiting, but when she called me, I was surprised. She's like, yeah, we're all done. They're going to grant it. I'm like, what happened? Apparently, they saw the baby. They just asked her for an updated medical record, and they were satisfied. So could it be the baby? It could have 100% been the baby, but I've gone to Stokes interviews with couples who had babies that they didn't have in the first interview, and they still were interviewed. It's also possible that for some reason they schedule it as a Stokes, but really just needed her medical. That's a possibility. I'm not really sure, but what I do know, hey Lambert, thanks for watching. What I do know about this case was that we did make sure at the second interview they had all their updated evidence, that they were well prepared to answer the questions at both interviews, and that for the second one, they actually asked us, should we try hard to find a babysitter? We said no, bring the baby. That's always good to bring the baby in a situation like this. And my client, she already has the green card in her hands, and it's a 10-year green card because she had to wait so long from the first interview to the second interview. They've now been married well over 2 years, and that means in 3 years she will be eligible to become a U.S. citizen. So this is just a great case, an interesting case. I know a lot of people watching are wondering, is my wait unreasonable right now for my second interview? Or I had my first interview, I'm still waiting, what do I do? This just shows you, A, people are waiting from 2019 for their Stokes. B, I do think this is an example of if you do it all right the first time, it's possible they could have avoided this whole long wait and the second interview. Again, I can't guarantee it. I could just say from my experience that there were some things that I knew about with their evidence application that could have been done better the first time. Like, I don't believe they submitted all of their bona fide marriage evidence like with the application, and it's always a good thing to do. Well, that is all today for notable approvals. If you or anyone you know needs representation in their legal proceedings, our phone number, email, scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Don't forget to tune in tonight to Are You Smarter Than Naturalized Citizen, episode number 5, to see who is going to win. Is it the naturalized citizen from Ireland or the American-born citizen? We'll find out tonight. We hope to see you all there, and we'll see you again tomorrow for another notable approval. Have a great night.